When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hey guys, Mark Ledlow here at the Fearless Mindset Podcast, and today we're going to mix it up a little bit and bring my friend and colleague in the industry, Hector Robles from Mexico, in. Last time I saw Hector was in the IPSB conference in Las Vegas with him and his compadres down there from Mexico, and Pablo was there and all his other buds. I think we did a group photo together on LinkedIn.
It's fun.
That's when we're having fun, because people in the audience don't realize it, but the conferences where we get together and have dinner and we go to hang out, we just chalk it up and we talk. It's not, business is great, but that's where you go just to catch up and talk business and strategy and stuff like that. And I hear a lot of people say, well, I go to that conference, I don't get any business. But, what you really do is you solidify your relationships and your trust with your strategic partners is what really happens. And, I realize, me being Mark Ledlow, I can't have every contract in the world. It's just impossible. It doesn't work that way, because not everybody's going to be like Mark Ledlow. And that's why you want to go to these conferences. And, they say iron sharpens iron, to get, follow up with each other. How's life? And unfortunately, I think I caught some sinus infection when I was on the ground. So I was only for 3 days. The rest of the week I was in a hotel recovering from a sinus infection. So I missed out on a lot of the festivities. How's things going for you, Hector?
Doing well. A bit of a hiccup I have here. I'm going to tell you a funny story. But before that, going back to your very specific summary of the conference. Well, conferences are for network. If you're going to be selling there because you want to sell, you're going to be disappointed, because at least for me, I go to those conferences to decompress. Of course, I listen to a lot of conferences and perspectives on the industry, but I meet a lot of friends and people. And I've worked in different industries, like the construction industry, the medical industry, telecommunications industry. And I haven't seen an industry that works together like this one. You can be competitors at the same time. You can be vendor at the same time. You can be friends at the same time, because we have to share a lot of information, because what works for you may work for me, and it may protect my clients, because we have to share that kind of information, and we have to be open and transparent with regards to the information, because I can tell you one thing. If one company does something wrong, it needs the whole industry. If one of those EP agents behaves like very arrogant or in a bad way, it really hurts the industry, because people think that we are all like that. So we have to work together, and that's why I go to those conferences, to meet people, to network, to see my friends that I see probably once a year. Maybe we talk, but we are engaged in these day-by-day operational situations at the companies in their countries, or you're traveling. As I said, we haven't seen each other since December, but we chat, we write in LinkedIn, emails. How are you? Everyone's okay, and we understand that this job is very demanding. This job demands a lot of your time. There's a lot of stressful situations when things come up all of a sudden. And that's a way to see how people are, especially after the pandemic, and I think people are very eager to go to those conferences to network. And as I said, if you go there expecting to sell and get the huge contracts out of the blue, you're not going to get that. That's not your ROI in that trip. Take it as a vacation, like with your friends, and do it like that, and just flow, and just be you. Unless you have already have appointments or dinners with prospects, then that's different. But we are all friends, and the IPSB, not everyone is the final user. Not usually we are we are all in the vendor or the supplier side of the creation. So it's going to be difficult. What you can do is have alliances with other companies if you don't cover certain territories, or whether that is in the US or abroad. And that's why I go. That's why we had this some sort of Latin American corridor, because we wanted to show the industry that there are companies that have the level of a lot of companies in the US or in the UK or in Canada or in Ireland or in Germany or in the Middle East, that we can be of support to those who have clients. We tell them, don't let the client go because you don't have operations. Instead, build a relationship, trust that company. If you want to audit their procedures, their SOPs, do so, because that's the way we build trust. And then you don't let go business, and even if it's $100, $300, $1,000, well, it's better to have those $300 in your pocket than in somebody else's pocket. That's what I say, because one by one you get millionaire, and maybe a billionaire. But that's why I go. That's why I go to those places. And going back to the funny story, I'm in Acapulco, enjoying the beach with my family, but I've been indoors for the last 2.5 days because I had to play and that's an advice for everyone in these summer holidays. If you go to the beach with these temperatures, just wear your sandals, wear your sneakers, wear whatever, because I was, just walking by the, by the ocean, right where the sand is wet and you don't burn your feet. And then all of a sudden a little kid starts running because his parents were doing something else. The kid was unattended and the kid started running. And all of a sudden the kid started shouting and screaming and yelling because the kid was burning his feet. So I had to run like 30 feet to carry this little 2-year-old boy and then run another 15 feet. So my feet, I have second degree burns in my feet. Ouch. So I haven't been able to walk a lot, and I haven't been able to walk at all because I had to go to the doctors and they had to do a lot of things. I'm taking antibiotics. I had fever. It was horrible. I'm not going to show you a picture of my feet, both of them, and my feet and my toes. But it was bad, and I just don't understand why people leave kids unattended at such temperatures. And just take it as an advice. I just try to do something for this kid. I hope this kid is okay. I don't think because if I'm an adult and my feet are like that, poor kid. I can tell you that, poor kid, and that's my story. I hope tomorrow I can go to the beach and stay there for a couple of minutes, because today I can sit down. Before I had to be in bed, because once the blood goes back to my feet, I feel like my feet are exploding, are boiling and exploding, and it's like hell. Nerves, and the skin is, the bare skin. I have no epidermis. I don't have that at all. So I have to wear bandages and take change the bandages and clean and do everything twice or 3 times a day. But I hope tomorrow's going to get better. So that's a freebie for everyone. Please take care. Don't play the thing, I'm from Florida or I'm from here and there. I'm used to these temperatures. We're not used to these temperatures. I can tell you that. Wear your sandals, do the proper thing, and don't leave your kids unattended, because you're going to have a horrible holiday. You're going to be somewhere with a kid crying, and you don't want that, even if it's your son or daughter or your family. It's not a good thing. But anyway, I'm here. I'm very happy to be in your podcast finally.
Finally, taking some time. We took a month off in June. I did not do any recordings. I was traveling so much. Like, what's the point? I'm just going to rest, and we'll start back up when I get home after July 4th. And we've had probably, 5 guests all lined up. And it's been crazy. Finally, we got you on. I know you've been looking forward to this for about a year or so. We've been talking about it, just all about the planets aligning. Now, did the kids, mom and dad, find them, or did you find the mom?
I found the kiddo, for the kiddo, because started, yelling. I saw who exactly looked back and looked for the kid, and then I took him there. But at that time, I didn't feel anything at all. Just after like half an hour later, I had a little blister, and then I said, "Well, it's a little blister, no problem." And an hour later,
sure,
it was bad for me.
Wow.
It was already bad for me. I had like cushion, the blister full of water in half of my feet. So you can argue.
Oh wow! And that water is warm down there too, right now, isn't it? Really warm.
It's really boiling. I mean, it's around 90 degrees in the shade, but with the humidity factor, it feels like probably 100 degrees. So you have to.
Wow. So hurricane season is going to be pretty bad this year.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
And it hasn't been raining here. It should be raining during the afternoon or in the evenings, but we haven't had a lot of rain. I know in Mexico City it's pouring rain. Temperatures drop to the 60s, so it's not very warm there. But that's typical in Mexico City. Summer is a rainy season, so but it's good because we are not at that altitude of the city. With the temperatures in the 90s, people get crazy because we're not used to that. Our temperatures in Mexico City are mild, probably not even 70s, 65, 69, probably 70 in the worst case scenario. But because it's very high, it's almost a mile and a half altitude. So
really?
Mexico City is about a mile and a half. So. And where I live, I live in the mountain, like by the hills in the mountains. Where I live is almost 2 miles, so I see pine trees and it's different the temperature. So because Mexico City it's a valley, it's really a valley and it's surrounded by mountains. Mexico City itself has 9 million people, but with 9 million, but with a metropolitan area. It's a bit more than 20 million. That's why we live in the outskirts, in the hills, in the suburbs. We don't live really downtown. Plenty of people like it, but once you have a family, you're not there. You're not there anymore. You go to the suburbs. I think everywhere is the same. But
it's like living in Southern California.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more.
Gotcha. And so does Mexico City, are they experiencing all the shootings and stuff, or is that all the border control, what cartel stuff? Is that mainly border?
Mainly in the border. Those shootings are mainly in the border and in some other northern states, but in very remote communities. Very remote communities where they probably grow drugs or, poppy or marijuana and things like that in very remote areas, not touristic at all, not even industrial at all. But, Mexico City with 22 million inhabitants, well, it can be, which Mexico do you want to talk about? Because there are so many Mexicos that in a big city, you have the very bad areas and you have the good areas in the business district. And usually those areas are pretty safe. Especially touristic areas. Of course, there are, pickpockets and whatever you experience in every single place. But the thing is that Mexico has this perception of a party place. And when you go there, then people, for some reason, tend to go to bad areas to buy fun stuff or to get funny shows or to go to bars and things like that. And then there's bad people. There's bad people. And there are things that happen. And I always tell, when I offer travel advice, I always tell them, if you don't go to those places in the city where you live, because they're bad, don't go there. Don't go in other countries, even if you speak the language, because you may know the language, but you don't know the slang. You don't know the traditions. You don't know the customs. You don't know the tricks there. So you have to be careful. Stick to the financial district or the business district or the touristic district where police officers speak English. There's special police for tourists, and then they offer a lot of guidance and protection. And it's a fun city. I mean, there are more than 1,500 museums, food, whatever you want, fun, art, whatever you want. It's very nice. It's a beautiful city. Yeah, it's overcrowded. There's a lot of traffic. Yes, of course, more than 5 million cars. What can you expect? But if you plan your trip uh, good and you research, and it's not about having a security consultant telling you where to go or where not to go in terms of tourism. There are a lot of agencies that can give you proper advice and help you a lot. But yes, if you want to do research, do it, because, well, as I said, there are many types of Mexico. Shootings, going back to the shootings, those shootings mainly happening in those in the border towns, in those northern areas, some in the south. But as I said, they're probably are gangs. They shoot each other. They don't shoot at people. And I can tell you the odds for tourists or even for me to be involved by accident in one of those shootings is very remote. It's just as remote as being as experiencing a mass shooting in the U.S. in a mall or in an outdoors event. It's just as remote as that. Can it happen? Yes. Is it in the news? Yes, a lot, and you should read about it. But when we do our investigations, we investigate the kind of people that are involved in those shootings, especially when foreigners are involved, then we see that those foreigners weren't there for tourism. Some of them were, I'm not going to say any nationality, but some of them were actually, they had problems with the police because of drug dealings or because organized crime, and they went there probably to extend their organized crime thing, but they make them, the media makes them like victims, and sometimes they are not victims. They were looking for trouble. They were there for trouble, and of course, if there's collateral damage, and I'm sorry to use that term because we're human beings, but if someone else gets a bullet by accident, wrong place, wrong time. But as I say, just like a mass shooting in the U.S., and people still go to the U.S. and people still come to Mexico. The tourism, international tourism is up 20% this year. 20%. That's huge this year, and not only from. I mean, the huge chunk is from the U.S., but the mix is a lot of British, a lot of Germans, a lot of Italians, a lot of French, a lot of Spanish, a lot of people from countries in South America like Brazil or Peru or Colombia, especially now that Mexico does not ask for a visa, at least for Colombians and Peruvians, but for Brazilians again because of illegal immigration. They were using their tourist visa or status in Mexico just to go to the border and try to cross illegally. So those are one of those collaborative measures that the U.S. and Mexico immigration officials are putting into place to reduce the amount of people that are trying to cross the border, because and that's one of the reasons why there are so many shootings at the border, because of the illegal immigration that is all packed up there because of these agreements between countries. And if you add up to the illegal trade of firearms between Mexico and the U.S. And when I say Mexico, it's the Mexican organized crime or the Colombian or the other countries' organized crime, because in Mexico, firearms are illegal. You need a permit, and to get a permit is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Sure. And it's hard. And that's also another advice I should give to your audience. We have had situations in which, for some reason, travelers forget a magazine full of bullets, or they forget their gun in their backpack, and then they travel. For some reason, they just go through security in the U.S., but once they come to Mexico and they go through security, they find it. And as it is illegal, you go to jail immediately. It's a federal offense, and we have had cases in which we have had to contact, very important lawyers to just help us try to get those guys out of jail within the first 72 hours, because if you're not out of jail in Mexico within the first 72 hours, then you go to proper penitentiary. And then you have to go through your process there, and you don't want that. First of all, you don't want to be in those 72 hours to begin with. But after that, then you go to this penitentiary, and it's going to take you 6 months, 1 year to get out of that, because that's going to be like illegal trafficking of firearms. That's the federal offense, and it's one of the big cause of the whole situation. So even for EP agents, they think they can come to Mexico with their firearms and
do you come across that often?
I come across questions about it. Questions about it. Of course, I mean, okay. The border between Mexico and the U.S. is so connected that sometimes going through Mexico is just like going from I don't know, to Orange County to Los Angeles County, or from to two different states. You don't see anything, counties. But if they see something suspicious, then they'll stop you, and they know, and they know who, because people who cross often, then they know where they are probably buying. As people go to do their shopping, or when the typical thing when the gas is cheaper in the U.S., people from Mexico cross, or when the gas in Mexico is cheaper than the people from the U.S. cross to Mexico to refill their tanks. And they know who they are, and they know who the bad guys are, and there are always whistleblowers. But that also adds up to this the whole situation, because illegal immigrants are defenseless, and the only difference I can tell you that in those terms is that a good thing in the U.S. there's a rule of law. If you go to jail, you're going to have a proper. You're going to be the judge, and there's going to be the law that is going to apply, and you're going to have the right to defend in a very unbiased way, in a very objective way, following the law. And in Mexico, that's not going to happen easily. If it happens, it's going to take a long time. So I don't recommend that. So always take care, always check that. And if you're in your plane, if you're not sure in the plane while you're traveling, flying, check again your bag. And if you find something really, even if it was worth $3,000, go to the bathroom in the plane and throw it there. Throw the magazine, everything. If you land with that and you go through immigration and they find it, you're going to be in problem. So, and it's going to cost you a lot more than your beautiful gun or $25 magazine.
Right. Good point. You're saying tourism is up 20% in Mexico. Is that because international businessmen are investing in Mexico because of cheaper labor to get things done and all that type of thing? What's going on from the business perspective there in Mexico?
There's a lot of business traveling. Yeah, I would say that labor in Mexico is still cheap, not as cheap as before, and I don't think not as cheap as before, because Mexico now is considered a middle-income country, and it's not as cheap because now I can tell you one thing, that the main or what were supposed to be the main industrial hubs in Mexico are really packed. There's no land anymore, and the land that you find is very expensive. So this is not the ROI for your investment isn't gonna be positive in the first year, especially how you measure in your company, especially multinationals. They measure their ROI in 3-5 years, and maybe that's not going to happen unless you get tax breaks or different types of breaks from the governments, and governments are not willing to do that anymore. So as supply and demand. So those companies are trying to go to other small towns with cheaper land. But the problem is that getting labor there is going to be expensive, because it's a small town that probably has one university. So you have other people from other states have to, immigrate. They have to relocate, and that's going to be expensive. So mainly it's because of one thing, the nearshoring. A lot of companies that, especially because of the pandemic, a lot of companies still have problems with the logistics from Asia or from other parts of the world. So they are relocating their companies in Mexico for what they call nearshoring. The situation there with nearshoring is these remote areas trying to find the proper human resources, qualified human resources, because what we have had in terms of sectors is a lot of automotive, aerospace, and how to say green energy. So you need a lot of engineering and a lot of engineers and very very qualified workforce. So that doesn't make it any cheap, and also because of the agreement with Mexico that now covers a lot the labor protection. There's a minimum which Mexican companies have to comply, the minimum of what Canadians need to comply and Americans need to comply. But if we don't, if Mexico, if companies established in Mexico, whether they are Mexicans or from other countries, they have to comply with that. Otherwise, there's going to be a trial at the, what do you call, I don't know how you call it, the NAFTA second version 2.0, which Trump was very clever to build from zero, but that protects a lot of the labor. So unionization, standards, pays, benefits, insurance, social security, things like that. So there's a different perspective. But with the nearshoring, as I said, there's competitiveness, and it's not going to be at the border. It's not going to be at the border. Things are going down south, because I said the border. There's a lot of, it's very, very, very difficult to get infrastructure there, like water. You need a lot of water to develop industry. A lot of water.
Exactly.
And that's one of the problems in Mexico, that organized crime is actually, organized crime knows that water is important, and they are trying to, I don't know the exact word to say it, but they are trying to kidnap or try to extend their organized crime into limiting water for those cities.
Wow, what a trip! Never thought about that. That's a great strategy.
But, the government is doing something. They are actually, cracking down on those illegal dams, because they found illegal dams in different things, and that's why there were rivers that all of a sudden were dried, and they didn't understand why all of a sudden, in a couple of years, a river that was supplying, it was a source of water for so many cities, all of a sudden was like dry. And these organized crimes were building small dams in remote areas imagine the amount of money that they have to do that. So millions. And when it comes to business, if they see a profit, they're going to do it. And the difference between organized crime and us, people who live by the rule of law, is that they don't have a law, they don't have limits, and they have 24 hours to think about how they're going to cheat, how they're going to steal from you, how they're going to do things. And we don't have that privilege, and we don't want that privilege.
Wow, that's a trip. I never thought about organized crime taking control of water sources, because you have to have water sources to build communities and support factories and support warehousing and all that type of thing.
So that can limit the industrial development. I'm going to share with you later on a piece of nearshoring and what this came up this week. That's why I was surprised about it, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, kidnapping is not a good business anymore. Extortion maybe, but it's like, extortion nowadays is just like having a payphone. It's like putting little coins, which maybe they don't exist anymore anywhere in the world.
So they're changing their tactics and how they do things right now.
For them, it's so easy to move from one sector to the other. Whatever they see a business, they just do it. As I said, kidnapping is not, because it's risky. You need to have a huge infrastructure. I'm not saying that it's not happening. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm just saying it's not as profitable as before, unless it's a very high net worth individual. But those those kidnappings, you need huge infrastructure, because you're going to be surveilling that person for 6 months, 8 months, having people, how you say, working for them somehow, disguised guys there as a gardener as a cook or something, and they just look at, or as their neighbors, but they have to pay rent. They have to pass all the, especially when they live in gated communities, they have so many rules, and you need the whole community to approve that you buy a house or rent a house. So you need to they need to find a very respectable person who's going to rent or buy that apartment or that house, but they don't know if that person is really a member of the organized crime. And that's what they look for now.